12 stones. Prologue. Jerusalem, 312 AD. The flickering torchlight danced along the ancient stone walls of the hidden chamber. Cloaked figures moved silently, reverently, around a small altar carved from limestone. Upon it sat 12 smooth stones, each the size of a man's palm, inscribed in faint but precise lettering. "Are they safe?" whispered the old man, placing his trembling hand over the stone-marked Petros. "They will be," another said. "Each stone will be hidden where its bearer walked, until the time is right. Until the one with faith and doubt both walks the path," said the third, "and remembers what the world forgot." They bowed their heads. Then, one by one, the stones were wrapped in cloth and carried away into the darkness. Chapter 1: The Collapse. Present day, Jerusalem. Dr. Elias Rowan stood at the edge of the pit, arms crossed, staring down at the collapsed tunnel with a mix of frustration and curiosity. The morning sun cast long shadows through the scaffolding, where workers were cautiously clearing rubble near the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. "Another miraculous accident," he muttered. "This place has more sinkholes than answers." A soft voice behind him interrupted. "You're the expert on buried answers, Dr. Rowan." He turned to see a woman in her early 30s, sun-kissed skin and sharp eyes beneath a wide-brimmed hat. She extended her hand. "Miriam Levi, Israeli Antiquities Authority." He shook her hand. "Elias Rowan, Christian archaeology consultant and part-time skeptic." Miriam smiled. "Good. You'll need a bit of both." As they descended into the tunnel, the scent of dust and old stone filled the air. At the bottom, beneath layers of shattered brick, was an opening, a narrow passageway, newly revealed. Elias crouched, flashlight in hand. "Looks untouched. No modern tool marks." Miriam pointed to the edge. "Look there. Etchings. Greek and Aramaic." He leaned in, tracing the markings with his fingers. "Petros, Iacobos, Ioans. These are names. The apostles." Miriam's voice was almost a whisper. "This could be the upper room. Or something older." They crawled through the opening and entered a small, domed chamber. At its center was a stone table, cracked by time. Upon it lay 12 stones, smooth, polished, and unmistakably inscribed. Elias felt a chill run down his spine. He wasn't a man of feelings, but something about these stones felt alive. 12 apostles," he said. 12 stones. "And one mystery," Miriam added. "Why were they buried?" Chapter 2: The Inscriptions. Elias paced around the chamber like a man possessed, muttering to himself and occasionally snapping photos with his field tablet. Each of the stones was arranged in a deliberate circle on the table, their inscriptions facing inward. Some bore names in Greek, others in ancient Aramaic. Miriam knelt beside one stone. "Bartholomeos," she read aloud. "And this one, Thaddeus. No Roman names. These weren't made for outsiders." Elias ran a hand through his hair. "This is more than a symbolic shrine. These stones were meant to be found. Or meant to be hidden," Miriam countered. "This chamber was deliberately sealed. Maybe someone didn't want them found." He nodded, his eyes narrowing. "These names, they correspond with locations. Traditions say Thomas went to India, James to Spain. If the stones represent their final missions, then they could be markers," Miriam said slowly. "Or keys." A shout echoed from the tunnel entrance. One of the workers stumbled in, out of breath. You need to come, now! Chapter 3 The Letter. Back in the light of the main excavation site, Father Ananias stood near a stone wall that had partially collapsed during the digging. His robes were dust-streaked, his lined face somber. In the rubble, he said, holding up a small leather pouch, we found this. Inside was a brittle scroll, wrapped in layers of protective cloth. Elias carefully unrolled it, revealing delicate Aramaic script and a signature in Greek, Mattheos, Matthew. He read aloud. 12 walked the earth with him. 12 bore his word to the corners of the world. 12 left behind more than stories. When gathered they will speak again, not with voices, but with fire. Miriam's eyes widened. That sounds like a prophecy. Or a warning, Father Ananias said. This church was built over something far older than itself. And you may have just uncovered it. Elias shook his head. This can't be real. The apostles were real, yes, but this is legend. Legend, the priest replied, is often truth waiting for faith. Chapter 4 The First Trail. That night, Elias sat alone in his room at the Armenian Quarter, the 12 stones laid out on the table before him. His phone buzzed with missed calls from his university, news agencies, and curious sponsors. But his attention was on the stone marked Thomas. According to ancient Christian tradition, Thomas traveled east, farther than any of the others. There were rumors of churches he founded in southern India, long before the faith reached Europe. He ran his fingers over the inscription. It pulsed with warmth. The next morning, he found Miriam already packing a bag. You're going, aren't you? She asked. I booked the first flight to Chennai. If there's any truth to this, it starts there. She smiled. I've got my visa and vaccinations ready. I'll meet you at the airport. Elias blinked. You're coming? Of course. You're not facing 12 apostles alone. Chapter 5 India, the Apostle of Doubt. Chennai, India, humid, noisy, and alive with movement. The city felt like 1,000 voices speaking at once, and Elias found it both exhilarating and overwhelming. Miriam moved through the crowd like a seasoned traveler, unfazed by the sensory overload. They took a car south to Mylapore, a district known for its ancient Christian roots. At the heart of it stood the San Tomi Basilica, said to be built over the tomb of St. Thomas. Inside the cool stone sanctuary, they were greeted by Father Joseph, a local priest and historian. You're not the first to come seeking the legacy of Thomas, he said, smiling warmly, but you might be the first with his stone. Elias carefully unwrapped the Thomas stone and placed it on a table in the priest's study. Father Joseph leaned closer. There's something underneath. He gently turned the stone over. Engraved faintly on the underside were coordinates. Elias's heart skipped. These weren't just grave markers. They're clues. Chapter 6 The Cave of the Message. The coordinates led them to a hill outside the city, a place rarely visited, Little Mount, where local tradition claimed Thomas once took refuge from those who sought his life. A narrow cave lay carved into the hill, barely large enough for 2 people to enter. The air was thick with the scent of earth and time. Carvings marked the walls, ancient crosses, fading Aramaic script, and one phrase still clear. Blessed are those who have not seen, and yet believe. Miriam reached out. He spoke those words to Thomas. Elias ran his fingers across the inscription. There's something behind this panel. They pried it loose, and behind it, wrapped in oilcloth, was a scroll. Preserved miraculously, it bore the mark of Thomas, and beneath it, a simple phrase. One stone leads to another. Follow the fire. Spain. Elias stared in disbelief. James! We're being guided. Chapter 7: Fire and Memory. That night, Elias sat on the hotel balcony, holding the Thomas stone. The stars overhead seemed closer than ever. Miriam joined him quietly, handing him tea. Are you okay? She asked. He didn't answer right away. I lost my wife 5 years ago. Cancer. I prayed. I begged. Nothing changed. That's when I stopped believing. Miriam touched his hand gently. Maybe faith isn't about getting what we want. Maybe it's about being part of something bigger than ourselves. He nodded slowly, tears rising in his eyes. But I wanted it to mean something. That pain. That silence. Maybe, she whispered, this journey is your answer. Elias looked back at the stone. For the first time, it didn't feel cold. It felt alive. Chapter 8: Spain, the Pilgrim's Road. Santiago de Compostela, Spain, the end point of the ancient pilgrimage known as the Camino de Santiago. Pilgrims from around the world walked its paths, seeking meaning, healing, and transformation. Elias and Miriam stood at the edge of the Praça do Obradoiro, gazing up at the towering cathedral said to house the remains of James the Greater, son of Zebedee. It's breathtaking, Miriam whispered. And humbling, Elias replied. Especially knowing we might be holding a piece of his legacy. Inside, the cathedral was filled with gold, incense, and quiet awe. Father Miguel, the custodian of the archive, met them in the sacristy, where Elias placed the James stone beside a centuries-old map of the pilgrimage route. Father Miguel examined it closely. This pattern, see the lines within the carving? They match the ancient waymarks used by pilgrims, the scalloped shell. He traced a faint symbol on the stone, a scallop, the sign of the Camino. There's a legend, the priest continued. James left behind a message, not for his time, but for those who would walk with doubt and devotion. You must walk part of the Camino. Elias sighed. I was hoping for more scrolls, less hiking. Miriam smiled. Consider it spiritual cardio. Chapter 9: The Hidden Chapel. They walked 20 kilometers of the Camino Ingles, following clues hidden in stained glass windows and centuries-old markers. At the edge of a forested hill, near a half-forgotten shrine to St. James, they found it, a crumbling stone chapel, almost consumed by ivy. Inside, sunlight streamed through cracked slits in the stone, illuminating a simple stone altar. Upon it lay a worn manuscript, protected by a silver box. Miriam opened it carefully. Elias read aloud. The fire moves. One bearer leads to the next. Seek the one who preached to the lions. Mark, Miriam said instantly. Alexandria. Elias nodded. Egypt is next. As they stepped out of the chapel, Elias paused. You feel that? He asked. Miriam turned. What? He held up the James stone. It was warm again. The stones are reacting. Not just to where we are, but to who we are. Chapter 10: Shadows in Alexandria. Alexandria, Egypt, ancient city of scrolls, sand, and secrets. They met with Dr. Rashi Farouk, a Christian Copt scholar who had dedicated his life to preserving early church writings. When Elias revealed the mark stone, Dr. Farouk's expression changed. You must be careful, he said gravely. You are not the only one seeking the 12. Miriam frowned. Who else? There are collectors, men who believe the stones possess power. Not spiritual, but supernatural. They believe whoever gathers all 12 controls something divine. Elias raised an eyebrow. And what do you believe? Dr. Farouk leaned in. I believe the apostles left these for the faithful, not the greedy. That night, their hotel room was broken into. Nothing was stolen, except for the Thomas stone. They know, Elias said. They're watching us. And now, Miriam whispered, they're following. Chapter 11. The Scroll of Mark and the Man in Black. They moved to a safer location arranged by Dr. Farouk, a guest house tucked behind the ancient Coptic museum. Guards were posted discreetly. Still, Elias couldn't sleep. The loss of the Thomas stone gnawed at him like a missing heartbeat. The next morning, Dr. Farouk led them through a dusty corridor in the museum's basement. He stopped before a locked steel door. We keep certain manuscripts here, he said, unlocking it. Ones that would be misunderstood. Inside, Elias spotted a scroll sealed with red wax and an emblem resembling a lion, Mark's symbol. This was found beneath the ruins of the ancient church of St. Mark, Farouk explained. Its content is mysterious. Elias carefully unrolled the scroll. He who holds the stones walks not alone. The fire of the word will call the faithful. But if taken in pride, the stones will fall silent. A scribbled line at the bottom caught Miriam's eye. The 12th guards the first light. When all are gathered, return to the Galilee. Elias looked up. This is a map. A message. And a warning. A sudden noise cracked through the silence. A door slammed above. Heavy boots echoed down the stairwell. Run, Dr. Farouk said. Out the back. Now! Chapter 12. Escape and Revelation. They darted out a side exit, Miriam clutching the marked scroll, Elias gripping the James and Bartholomew stones. As they rounded the alley, a tall figure stepped into their path, dressed in black, eyes cold, expression calm. I believe you have something that belongs to us, he said, holding out a gloved hand. Elias stepped forward. Who are you? A seeker of truth. But unlike you, I don't need faith to find it. Then you'll never understand it. Miriam snapped, pulling Elias back. The man's voice dropped. You're chasing a fantasy. The stones don't lead to God. They lead to power. A hidden truth suppressed by the early church. Elias narrowed his eyes. You don't want truth. You want control. Behind them, Dr. Farouk appeared with 2 guards. Leave, he told the man, or face the consequences. The man gave a small nod, turned, and vanished into the shadows. Chapter 13. The Return to Galilee. They flew back to Israel under aliases, arriving in the north near the Sea of Galilee, where Jesus had walked on water, and where most of the apostles began their journey. Elias sat on the shore, looking out at the waves. I used to think archaeology was about proving the past, he said. Now I see, it's about connecting with it. Miriam handed him the Simon stone, the last one recovered in Egypt before they fled. We're missing Thomas, she said. But we still have 11. Elias held the marked scroll up to the sunlight. Hidden ink shimmered along the bottom. A symbol, a star, with 12 points. At the center, a circle etched with the Hebrew word for light, or the first light. Elias whispered. It's not just a relic. No, Miriam said. It's a place. Elias stood. Then it's time to find it. Chapter 14. The First Light. The Sea of Galilee shimmered under the morning sun, still and wide like a mirror between heaven and earth. Elias and Miriam stood on a rocky hill overlooking the water. In his hand, Elias held the marked scroll, rereading the final lines. When the stones are gathered, return to the Galilee. The first light will rise between earth and sky. Father Ananias had joined them again, bringing ancient maps and oral traditions passed through generations. He pointed to a small peninsula jutting into the lake. There was once a chapel there, he said. It was said to be the place where Christ appeared to the apostles after the resurrection, where he made them breakfast. Elias raised his eyebrows. The third appearance. John 21. Miriam nodded. Feed my sheep. They hiked down to the site. The foundation stones of the forgotten chapel still remained. At its center, they found a flat circle of limestone, weathered, but carved with the same 12-pointed star seen on the scroll. Elias looked around, then knelt. This is it. He placed the 11 remaining stones one by one into the points of the star. Each stone clicked into place like a gear turning. As the last one settled, a soft rumble came from beneath them. Then, silence. Chapter 15. The Light Beneath. A circle of stones slowly lowered into the earth, revealing a narrow spiral staircase lit by a flickering blue glow. The three of them descended cautiously, hearts pounding. The air was cool and dry, untouched for centuries. At the bottom was a circular chamber. At the center stood a pedestal, and upon it, a glowing stone, translucent, crystalline, radiating light from within. It was inscribed in Aramaic. Or Cadman, the first light. Father Ananias knelt. This isn't just a relic. This is a symbol of the Word before creation. Miriam stared at it. The apostles must have created this chamber. They wanted it hidden until someone with the heart to believe and the mind to search could find it. Elias stepped forward, overwhelmed. But we're missing one stone. A voice echoed in the chamber. No, you are not! They turned to see the man in black at the entrance, holding the Thomas stone. You were followed, Father Ananias whispered. The man stepped forward. Give me the light. I'll complete it. Elias stood between him and the pedestal. You think this will give you power? It won't. It's not meant for one man. The man's voice cracked. You think this is faith? This is knowledge. Proof of something they buried for centuries. Miriam stepped forward. Proof is not the same as truth. The man lunged forward, but Elias grabbed the Thomas stone from his hand and placed it in the final point. The chamber lit up, not with fire, but with a golden, living light. The stones pulsed, and a soft wind rose from the pedestal. The man screamed and fell to his knees, covering his eyes. And then, stillness. Chapter 16. The Fire Within. The chamber was changed. The walls now shimmered with images, visions of the apostles walking across lands, healing, teaching, dying in faith. At the center, the light dimmed slightly and projected a single word in Hebrew, Greek, and Latin. Remember. Father Ananias wept. It's not a weapon. It's a witness. Elias touched the pedestal. He felt no heat. No magic. Just peace. I understand now, he said. The stones weren't left to give us power. They were left to awaken something. Faith? Miriam asked. No, Elias said with a faint smile. Hope. Epilogue 12 Stones. Months later, Elias stood in a quiet exhibition hall in Jerusalem. A small plaque read, 12 Stones, the Legacy of the Apostles. Each stone was placed behind glass, but the first light was not on display. It had been reinterred beneath Galilee, where it belonged. Elias turned to Miriam, who stood beside him, now officially co-director of their new foundation, the Wayfarers Institute. "Think they'll believe it?" she asked, gesturing to the visitors trickling in. "They don't have to," Elias replied. "Some things you don't find with your eyes." He touched the glass over the Thomas stone. "You find them with your heart."